Good morning, everyone. How are you, everybody? Welcome to the Book Fairies fifth annual Read-a-Thon. We are back again with our lineup of amazing authors. It is a month long of literacy events. We're trying to raise awareness and funds for our mission, the Book Fairies mission of getting books into the hands of our neighbors in need. I want to do a heartfelt thank you to our top sponsors, which are Amazon, and of course, recognize our honoree, Michael Sorreo from First Central Savings Bank. Anybody can be a part of this. If you want to, you could still make donations. We'll put a link to our donation page on our Facebook, and you can also access it through our website as well. But it takes a village, so please consider being a part of this amazing event. Today, I'm super excited. We have Jen Calonita. She is a New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of more than 30 books for teens and middle school, right? And you've sold over 1 million copies of your books, and they've been translated into 15 languages. Today, you're going to be reading from The Rise of Flynn Rider. And welcome, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Good morning, everyone.
Yes, we're super excited to have you here. We've been talking for a while. For those that don't know, Jen is a Long Island native, but she has also volunteered in the book bank. She is so passionate and supportive of our amazing mission that she not only is here today and has donated some books, but she also has gotten her hands on our mission, come to the Freeport Book Bank and helped us sort. We can't thank you enough for that. You are a great example of, taking a mission and moving it forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you for all you do every day. I know everyone in our community just loves the book fairies, and I'm just so thankful for what you're doing.
Listen, and so recently you had a milestone birthday, and we were talking, we had a sidebar one day, and you mentioned that you were trying to get a little free library, and we happened to have had someone donated one to us, and we weren't sure what we could do with it. And you actually took that and put that into action in your local school. Do you want to tell them where it's located? And
Yes, I am so thankful to all of you. I mean, this little free library is now in the Merrick community, the North Merrick community. For those who are nearby, it is on Old Mill Road between Merrick Avenue and Meadowbrook Road, right in front of the Old Mill Road School. And there are tons of elementary age books in there and picture books in there. And I'm just so thankful to everybody at Book Fairies for donating it, because we got to give this little free library a new home. It's painted, it's got a refresh, and it was so fun to go by the other night and see kids riding up on their bikes and taking books. So I'm so appreciative.
the little free libraries are great because communities can really also be a part of the distributing of books, which is a great thing. Whatever neighborhood you're in, it's important that the kids have access to books, right? And it's
Yeah.
fun for kids to swap their books. They can drop off books that they no longer need. And so the little free libraries we think are great. And the timing was perfect because we didn't have anybody that could take it. And it was in great shape, and you really repurposed it. And that's what we are all about, is upcycling and everything literacy. So we upcycled the Little Free Library and we put it into good use. So I'm going to hop off and I'm going to let you do some reading from the book. We're super excited. And then we'll come back. We'll talk about the book. We'll talk about the series. And I want to just recommend, if anybody has any questions, any teachers, shout out to the teachers that are on here. I know we have Freeport and Westbury and Wyandanch and Glen Cove and some good school districts that are on. If anybody has any questions when Jen's done, whether it's about this book or any of your other amazing books, we'll come back on and we'll chat. So I'm going to hop off and let you do what you do best.
Great. So good morning, everybody. So today I'm reading from Lost Legends. This is a series about Disney heroes as kids. So if you've ever seen the Disney movie Tangled, this is Flynn Rider right here, but as a boy. Now, because he's a boy, this means it takes place 10 years before Tangled. So Flynn has not met Rapunzel yet. He is just a kid. He's grown up in an orphanage. And I took the whole story. I'll tell you more about it after the reading. But when we open, Flynn goes by the name Eugene, because if you've seen Tangled, you know his actual name is Eugene Fitzherbert. And this is all about how Eugene becomes Flynn. So we open up, Flynn Eugene is in the orphanage, and I'm going to read to you from the first chapter a little bit, and then we'll open it up to your questions about Disney characters, and I can tell you more about the whole series. So it's told from Flynn's point of view. And that's all he wrote. Lights out, everyone. 12-year-old Eugene Fitzherbert closed the book he was reading from with a loud clap. He was immediately met with a chorus of boos. You didn't finish the book, shouted Leaf. Eugene tried to sound innocent. What do you mean? You skipped the ending, yelled Philippe from the back of the room. He hasn't even gotten to the stables yet, agreed Rolf. After he's caught in the stables, there's the whole sword fight on horseback and then a big jump off the waterfall. We have to hear the sword fight, moaned Leaf. That's the best part of the story. I don't know, fellas, said Eugene, secretly enjoying their outrage. I'm pretty tired. Was it so wrong to make the kids prove they were paying attention? Read-alouds took a lot of time and effort. Ha, who was he kidding? He thrived on attention. Plus, he loved any chance to share his prized collection of Flynn Rider books. Every night before climbing into bed under thin quilts laid over even thinner mattresses, the lads at Miss Clare's Home for Boys would nestle around the fire and listen to Eugene read. The boys were the only possessions he'd arrived at the orphanage with when he was a baby, and he treated them like treasure. Every time he cracked open the frayed leather spine of one of the stories and breathed in the musty gold leaf pages, it reminded him of something. He wasn't sure what exactly, but his gut feeling was that his parents had read these stories to him once upon a time. For that reason, he rarely let anyone touch the books, but he was always happy to share the stories aloud. And it had recently occurred to Eugene, just this night, in fact, at dinner, why not just actually act out the whole book rather than just read it? However, if the boys wanted the full Eugene Fitzherbert experience, they'd have to work for it. Please finish the book, said Leaf. Please. I don't know, Eugene hedged. The other Joys joined in on begging. All right, I'll do it. But I'm going to need a little help here. So who wants to help me out? Everybody raised their hand, but Eugene was looking for somebody sitting in the corner of the room, his best friend, Arnwaldo Schnitz. What do you say, Arnie? Want to help me? We make a good team. Arnie scratched his black hair, which was cut short just the way he liked it. That is true. Okay, I'm in. The other kids cheered louder. Everyone knew Arnwaldo Schnitz and Eugene Fitzherbert were as thick as thieves. Sure, they were different. While Eugene was chatty, Arnie quietly observed. Eugene was obsessed with grooming. His hair was a constant battle. While Arnie focused on clothes. Eugene was fixated on someday finding his parents, while Arnie felt at home with the family he created in the orphanage. And while Eugene loved to read, Arnie would rather spend his time jotting down notes in a small journal. But they were as close as brothers as two orphans could be. They looked at each other and got right to work. All right, fellas, everybody move the chairs out of the way. Eugene carefully placed the book on the sole bookshelf they had in the room, rubbed his hands together and looked at everyone. So where were we? The stables. He jumped up on a crate they used as a chair and the boys started to cheer. So there Flynn Rider was, tied to a fence post to be collected by Dr. Desereau's men in the morning. He had arrested Rider on bogus charges so he could steal his riches. But was Flynn ready to give up? No, the boys shouted, clearly delighted. He jumped down again. Flynn was smarter than Dr. Desereau. He waited for his guards to fall asleep, as guards inevitably do when they're overworked, slipped out of his restraints, snuck over to the stables under the cover of darkness. Did he use a door to enter the stables? No, said the boys. That's right. He climbed to the roof and entered through a hatch in the ceiling. But before he dropped down to his horse so he could ride away, he made sure no one was watching. That's when he made his move. This was his favorite part of the story, and their sleeping quarters were perfect. He reached up, tapped one of the rafter beams with his fist. A hidden compartment opened, revealing a rope that unfurled to the first floor. Eugene grabbed on and kicked off, swinging over the room. The boys cheered again, and several ran around the room to watch. Ryder hovered above the horses for a moment till he could see the coast was clear, then shimmied down again, made his way over to his trusty steed, Oliver. He petted a boy who was pretending to be the horse. Okay, I'm here to rescue, he said. Ryder climbed onto Oliver, slowly headed to the stable doors, sure he would be on his way to a new kingdom in no time, when he heard a voice. Not so fast, Ryder. Eugene turned around. Arnie was standing on a wood plank high above him. He pointed with a wooden sword. That horse doesn't belong to you. Are you sure? Said Eugene. I could have sworn I had a horse an hour ago, and I'm riding one now, so finders keeper, Dr. Desereau. He ran across the room. The two boys had their wooden swords. They went back and forth again. Ready to give up, said Arnie. Giving up has never really been my style, Dr. Desereau. I thought you knew that by now, said Eugene. The boys continued to cheer. They ran around the room. Watch the window, somebody shouted. But Eugene and Arnie weren't listening. Arnie swiped at Eugene's shoulder and he pretended to stagger. Then Eugene swiped at Arnie's stomach and his friend gave an ooh sound. Eugene jumped back down and began tying a rope around his waist. What are you going to do? Lift your horse in the air? It can't be done. I've never been fond of the word can't, he said. He tapped the floor, and the pulley holding him shot up into the air. Eugene started swinging around the room again. Rider, Arnie bellowed in agony. This was it, Eugene's big finish. He held his sword high and ran towards the rope, preparing to catch it and swing down to the lower level. He could already imagine the applause. He leaped for the rope, catching it effortlessly as he held his sword high in the air. But what he didn't count on was the momentum at that speed as his lungs swung out from him at full force. And before Eugene could even utter the words, "the end," his foot accidentally went right through the window, shattering, causing the rest of the boys to scream. Seconds later, the door to the dormitory flew open. A woman in her pajamas and curlers stood in the shadows, looking not too happy. Eugene, she yelled. Eugene cringed. Her face tightened as she spied the broken window. Then she sighed, not again. So that is chapter 1 and Eugene's story, The Rise of Flynn Rider.
That's awesome. It's so exciting and it gets you from the first word, right? You bring us in.
It's fun.
Um,
These are
it
adventures.
sounds it sounds so fun. And like we were chatting a little bit beforehand and I was just thinking to myself, how do you take something like Tangled? Like how do you where do you start with something like that?
Well, I'm very fortunate in that Disney lets me play in their sandbox. So I have permission from Disney to write about these characters. I write about them for Disney Publishing. And so since Flynn was the first book, what I usually do is I watch the movie over and over and over again and try to get ideas. And the great thing about Flynn was that he kind of basically gave me the story. I mean, there's a moment in Tangled where he says to Rapunzel, his real name is Eugene, and explains that he stole the name from a book he read in the orphanage as a kid. And I thought, what if I tell that story, how Eugene went from the orphanage with his best friend, joined a circus, learned they were secretly getting ready to steal the treasure of the lost princess, who is Rapunzel, and I tell that story. So a lot of times just watching the movies give me the answers I need.
Uh, well, you fill in a lot of the blanks, which is incredible, to just take that little snippet and be able to take it and bring it to the next level. That's fantastic. So let me just go to some of the questions we have here. All right. Okay, so what research did you do to capture the essence of the time period? That's got to be hard too.
Well, Disney has this great, I say it's like a secret library. So for every movie they've ever done or every TV show they've ever done, they have research, which the filmmakers used, and they're really great about giving them to the authors of their books. So I was able to research what was going on, even though the kingdom that Eugene is in is not a real kingdom. I was able to like research the time period in Europe, research what was going on in politics, what people wore for clothes, just everything going on in the kingdom. And that was helpful. And then I was actually very lucky because there is a Tangled TV show, which is on Disney Plus and Disney Channel. And the director of that TV show actually was great. He did a call with me, a meeting, and anytime I'd have a question about the characters he knew so well, I could reach out to him and I'd say, do you think Flynn would read this book? Do you think Flynn would say this? And he was very helpful. So that was nice as well.
That's great because someone just said, did you collaborate with Disney on the characters while doing it? So I guess there has to be, right? It's not,
Yeah.
you're not just on your own coming up with this. Because it all has to kind of meld and dovetail into each other, right?
Yes. And the great thing about Disney is it's a story that I create. But when I come up with the idea for the story, I go back to Disney, and Disney has an expert on every film. And so I
Mhm.
present the story idea, and then somebody at Disney has to say, yes, go write it. We could see our character doing this. Or maybe they'll say, hold on a second. Maybe I would change this or I wouldn't do that. And I've written 4 books about Frozen. And when the Frozen filmmakers get involved, they're wonderful. But sometimes I'll get notes like, Olaf can't read yet, and he wouldn't say this, or maybe change that line. So it's funny. It's great to have people who know their characters so well, and that make sure that you're staying true to the characters Disney created, and it's a lot of fun.
That has to change your creative process because you're not the whole package. You actually have to almost check your ego at the door and say, it's okay for somebody else to tell me that I need to change this.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, but it's like working with our teachers, right? Students, I would say,
mhm.
get notes back on a paper or homework you're doing, and sometimes you see your teacher has made a note saying, okay, maybe I would have done this instead of that, or this is incorrect. Sometimes at first, like even myself, I'll get these notes and I'll think, oh, I did a bad job, or they don't like what I have to say. But then I quickly realize, our teachers, just like my editors and the people at Disney, are trying to help me create a better story and do better work. And so once I remember that, then it's easier for me to push forward and revise, because writing is rewriting. So you're constantly rewriting your work.
I love that message. And it's a common theme with every author that we speak with because they all say they've been through that and they always able to relate it to the children, to the kids, to the adults that are on watching this, that it's okay to, take constructive criticism and not be so sensitive about it because none of us are perfect, right? We always make mistakes. We can always take advice from someone else. There's always opportunities to learn. I say that in my own job. I always say, there's always opportunities for me to learn and grow. So I'm always open to that. So Susie wanted to know what kind of feedback have you received from readers, especially fans of Tangled about this book? Have you gotten anything negative? That's interesting.
That's a very good question. So Susie, I would say, I've gotten really great feedback from Tangled fans. I feel like Disney fans are really wonderful in that they always want more stories. They always want to hear more about their characters. There are some websites like there's a website called Goodreads where I don't
Mm-hmm.
go because for every person who likes what you've written, there's going to be somebody else who will say, I think I could have done it better, right? Everybody thinks they have a better story. And so I have to stay true to the story that I came up with, but somebody else might have had a very different idea for Flynn. But I know that the director of the Tangled TV show, like he loved it. And I've heard from fans who love the Tangled TV show, like I really tried hard to work in all the characters, put in some little Easter eggs, as they call it, just so that you could see some things from Tangled, even though the story took place 10 years before. And so mostly I've gotten great feedback, and that's always so nice.
That's great. And not everybody has different, opinions and different likes and dislikes. So you're not going to please everybody. As
No,
in life, another lesson, not everybody's going to like you or love you, but you
right.
know what? You still have to get along and move forward and you can't let it affect you. So that's a good thing.
Very.
Um, and now, so this is one of a series. So let's talk a little bit, right? So
Yeah.
you want to talk about the other books in the series, which I love because they have, they're geared towards females and males, right?
Yeah, yeah. These are the first books I've ever done that have a male protagonist, so a male main character. So Flynn Rider was book one. Book two is all about Aladdin. It's the first time he's gone to the city of Agrabah, the first time he's met Abu, and Disney let me give Jafar, the big villain, a brother, and Aladdin accidentally almost opens the Cave of Wonder as a kid. And then book three came out this fall, and that is about Kristoff. That's the fixer upper. It's about him going to human school for the first time because he's raised by the trolls and learning he loves ice. And then this fall, the fourth book will come out, and it's about Disney's version of Hercules as a kid. So it's Greek mythology if you're a Greek mythology fan. And he has to go on a quest for Athena. He's gotten in a little bit of trouble with Athena, and so he has to go on a quest for her as a kid.
I love it. So those are some really great books that our teachers should take note of because they're, I think, entertaining, but I also feel like they allow you to get a little bit of a deeper glimpse into some of our favorite characters. And kudos to Disney for recognizing your talents. We're so proud to have our Long Island native doing all these great works. And on a side note, we had Kara
Hmm.
Menzel, she was on last week, so that's so funny because her and Idina did the Proud Mouse series, which is
Yeah.
another great book for kids to look about. So a little bit about the writing process. Somebody wants to know what inspired you to start writing.
So as a kid, I was a very reluctant reader, and I had a teacher, Miss Lapola, who really helped me find books that I would enjoy. And what I always say to kids is, there's not one book for every reader. Everybody's going to like something else. And so for me, she found I really liked funny books. And so it was Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing by Judy Blume that kind of kicked off my love of reading. And once I started reading, I wanted to write my own stories. And so I wrote a lot of short stories as a kid about the weather. Growing up here in New York, we have all kinds of weather. I liked writing about my friends. I liked writing about my family. And it wasn't really till I was an adult that I thought about writing a book. And my first book, Secrets of My Hollywood Life, came out probably before any of the students on this Zoom were born. And it was about a girl growing up in Hollywood who was on a hit TV show. And it was inspired by a job I had back then. I worked at an entertainment magazine and interviewed young celebrities. And so that was where my first idea kind of took shape.
Wow. See, that's another cool job that you've had, being able to be, interview the celebrities. But to take that, was it a hit right away, or because that was
I
your first book. If it was, that's pretty impressive.
I was very, very fortunate because the magazine I worked for at the time, they were so proud of me that I had gotten a book done and that it was a book about a young celebrity, and our magazine team people focused on young celebrities. So they actually did an excerpt in the book, which for the students, it means they took a few pages from the book, just like I read this morning, and they printed them in the magazine. And the book took off right away, and there wound up being 6 books in the series. And I've been writing books ever since. I've been very fortunate because not every idea you have is going to turn into a book. But those books really worked, and it was nice. I still meet people and students and authors who read those books when they were younger.
That's great. And so do you kind of stick with like an age group, right? Have you ever gone either way?
Everything I've ever written is for like elementary age or
Mm-hmm.
for teenagers. I love stories with magic, so most of my stories are either fairy tale related, or I have this other book called 12 to 22, which is about a girl who makes a wish on her phone and winds up seeing what life would be like when she's 22 for a little bit, and then she really wants to be 12 again. So I like stories with magic, and I love writing for kids. I think it's a period in my life that I think about a lot, and those friendships we make, and what's hard and what's fun about that age. So it's really the age my stories all take shape from.
So Rachel, I think it said Hubbard, one of the teachers that's on the Zoom, said 12 to 22 went flying off the shelves at our book fair. What was your inspiration for that book?
So I have to show you something. I actually have it right here. So for those who know 12 to 22, this just came in the mail. This is the Korean version of the same book. And they actually put comics in it, which I kind of wish they had done here in the US. But you can see there's a little comic version of the girl who looks a bit like Taylor Swift. So, I mean, the inspiration for that is there's a movie some of you might have seen on cable called 13 Going on 30. And my
Yeah.
book publisher at the time had said, I really want a book like 13 Going on 30. And I said, I don't know any kid who would ask to be 30, but Taylor Swift says 22 is a great age. And so I thought it would be fun to do 12 to 22, but have the main character helped out by her younger sister. Because when the main character becomes 22, her younger sister becomes 12. And so they kind of work together to try to figure out her life and get her back to 12 again. And I think it's a story just about learning like no age is perfect. Every age is going to have something that's hard, something that's fun, and you just have to embrace that age and go with it, and just realize no age is perfect. So I had a lot of fun writing that story. I'm glad people are finding it. I'm glad to hear it's doing well at the book fairs.
That's great. I just want to give a shout out to Tom Klicka. He's thank you from a fifth grade classroom in Wisconsin.
Hi, Wisconsin.
We love that. Welcome, Wisconsin. Judy Lawrence wanted to know, have any ideas been rejected, and how do you handle that?
It's hard. I've had many ideas rejected over the years. There's some that I still love that I'm always like, oh, why didn't that work? Like I wanted to do one idea where there was an American Idol type TV show where America decided they were going to have their first royal family, and families were competing to be the first royal family. And I thought, what better way to give America a royal family. And that idea didn't work. So, sometimes your ideas just don't work, but, I always keep a writer's notebook and I always have it full of ideas. And I feel like the ideas I keep going back to are the ones I'm excited to explore. And ideas come from all kinds of places. So my next book for elementary age, which comes out next spring, is called The Isle of Ever. And it's inspired by Long Island because as a kid, my grandparents had a home on the east end of Long Island in a town called Mattatuck. And it has long been rumored that some of the very famous pirate Captain Kidd's treasure was not found. And so as a kid, when I was bored, my grandparents would say, you should go back outside, you should dig because there could be treasure out there. And so last year I thought maybe that would be a fun story to tell. What if a girl found out she was going to collect a huge inheritance if she could find an island off the coast of Long Island that didn't exist on any maps? And what she doesn't know when she starts playing this game to find the island is that there's a cursed pirate treasure on it. And there might be some kids on there waiting to be rescued who've been stuck for 200 years, who are immortal, which means they don't age because they are the first ones who stole the treasure. So, I mean, that was all inspired by something that had happened to me as a kid. Obviously, I never found an uncharted island off the coast of Long Island, but I think it would be really fun. So ideas take shape and then they take on a life of their own.
I love that. And I used to do, I love Mattatuck and I used to go there when I was a kid as well. So it's my favorite place.
So,
And what I also want to say, I'm listening to the Barbara Streisand book, and she wanted to do Yentl for so many years. So you never know when your story, the time might not be right now, but it may be right in the future. So I love the idea of the Royals. That sounds like a fun idea.
it could still
Um,
be.
it's so good. It's so good. I'm just making sure I'm not missing any questions from and Nicolette asked, are there any characters you wrote about that are based off of you? Oh, that's good.
Oh, so, it's funny, like in 12 to 22, and there's another book, The Retake. Like, obviously, I've never made a wish on a phone and wound up time traveling. But the character itself, like, both characters in both books, they're having trouble. They're in sixth grade. They're having some problems with their friends. And in the retake, the two main characters, they wind up going to different lunch tables. They're no longer friends and they sit with different people and they're always sad about it. And that was actually inspired by me. My best friend Elpida and we had a fight in sixth grade, and I moved to a new lunch table, and I was always so sad because I missed her, but I just couldn't get up the courage to go say, I don't know what we're fighting about. Let's just make up. And so that really inspired the story. And the funny thing is, Elpida reached out to me on Facebook years ago and we reconnected. Neither one of us remember what the fight was about in sixth grade. She has a daughter named Zoe. Zoe is who I named the main character after in the retake. And Elpida and I are so close now. We travel together. We've run races in Disney together. And so I always say to kids, like, I know it's hard when you're fighting with somebody, but if you can just say to them, like, why don't we just talk about this? Like, I don't know what really happened. Be the bigger person and go talk to them first. Sometimes you can work things out. And that really inspired both those books. And the character's a bit like me, somebody who was just so sad to lose her friend and not sure how to handle it.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm sorry is a good way to start the break, that whether you think you did something, you didn't, I'm sorry is okay to move things forward. And think of all the time that you guys lost, but now you're making up for it. And it sounds
Yeah,
like an amazing friend. So God bless.
thank
Are there any particular themes or messages you hope your readers take away? Which we've talked about some of them, right? It's okay to make mistakes, what have you, but what
Absolutely. And it's okay to make mistakes, that you just have to believe in yourself. And I truly believe you should believe in magic in the world. And magic comes in all shapes and form. And that's the kind of story I want to tell. I want to take you on adventure. I want you to meet characters who are strong, who are, heroes in training, who are trying to find their way with friends. I want you to smile when you read the books. I want you to laugh, but I want you to realize you're stronger than you think and you're more powerful than you think, and you can do more than you ever believed possible. So that's what I always hope my characters can teach kids.
all good things, because there's so much good in the world, and sometimes there's so much negative out there, but you're focusing on all the positive and giving kids really truly inspirational characters to really focus on and follow through, because you're giving them even more about their story than the movies or whatever they've been involved in. One last question we have, have you had any unique interactions with fans, good or bad? I'm sure.
Well, this is actually very funny. So before The Rise of Flynn Rider came out, this was a few years ago, I was down in Orlando for some school visits, and I decided to go to one of the character breakfasts at Walt Disney World because there was a character breakfast that had Flynn, and I wanted to take pictures with the Flynn character and my book, but this book wasn't out yet. And so I brought one of my other Disney books. It was a Disney book called Conceal, Don't Feel, and there was a bunch of characters at the breakfast, and there was a Rapunzel character there, and she came over, and this friend of Rapunzel, as they call them, she came over, she took pictures with me. I said, I'm an author, this is my book. And 2 seconds later, my phone went off, and it was my publicist at Disney. That's the person who helps promote books. And she goes, are you at Disney World with your book? And I got really nervous because I thought I was in trouble. But it turned out this friend of Rapunzel had gone on break, and she went in the back and she said, the author of that book you gave me is here to take pictures with Flynn. And so I thought it was so funny how like small the world could be, that, this friend of Rapunzel couldn't tell me that she had read my book because she was Rapunzel, but she had read my book, and she reached out to somebody at Disney to tell them. So it was pretty funny.
That's a good and a positive thing, and that means the word is getting out about your books, which is a good
Yes.
thing. So again, I can't believe our time is up here. You've been tremendous. We can't thank you enough for everything you do for Book Fairies in general, and the kids that we love to give the books to, and all the kids that give us books to upcycle them. We upcycle over 1 million books a year, so it's crazy the amount of work we do, and we couldn't do it alone. Our volunteers, our supporters, the authors that join in. So you're a great part of that. Also, your
Thank
little free library, we hope it goes well. And
you.
let's everybody get your books, not just this one, you know, all four, because we got the fourth one's coming out in October. So everybody get the first three first, read them in order, and then we'll grab the fourth one. And when does that come out? In October, did you say?
October 4th. So
Okay. All right. Well, when that comes out, we'll do a social media shout out for you as well.
thank you to all Book Fairies does. Thank you everybody for tuning in this morning and reading with us. Thank you for being part of the Read-a-Thon.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you, and happy reading to everyone. Thanks.
Reading.
Thanks.